And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the MrWarrenHayes Show. Hey, how are you? I'm Warren. Welcome to the Thursday tradition, which is going to be on Friday today because, I had some stuff I had to deal with yesterday and it just wasn't working out. But I appreciate your patience. Thank you very much for your understanding in these troubling times. There's nothing troubling, like not personally. Like this, it's not. I'm not saying there's nothing troubling going on in the world right now. I'm saying like for myself, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing out of the ordinary. It's fun. It's funny because I like ever since the big health scare last year, whenever I go silent on a thing or something that's supposed to happen doesn't happen, and I don't give any updates because of whatever reason, people get worried, and that's very touching. You know what I mean? Like, but also it's like, it serves. Every time where for me, it serves to remind me like, oh, well, you need to keep people updated because legitimately people, ask questions in the Discord or, a couple of people send me DMs. Hey, Warren, hope you're okay. It's like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry. So I appreciate it. It means that people can do without these extraordinary reviews. Because, over the past couple of weeks, I think I have been establishing very, very clearly. Well, I mean, it's been a while, but particularly for the past couple of years, weeks, that I've established that I'm I'm a bit of a genius when it comes to reviews. I think that I provide something that seldom, not many people can. You will only find probably once in a lifetime. And I am proud to be able to be that vessel with which these excellent, excellent reviews are able to, be channeled through the cosmos through me and right to you. So I'm just the brush with which the painter paints. But oh, what an honor. Anyway, we're going to be talking about the AEW Dynamite review, show, Jesus, that happened on September 24, 2025, over there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the Peterson Events Center. 2,908 tickets were distributed according to WrestleTix. This is the final count. I mean, the advantage of doing this later, much later than usual, is that I am able to get the final counts for attendances. Maybe we should do this moving forward. No, we won't. Not just for attendance. 2,908, so that's under 3,000. The last time that Dynamite was in the Peterson Event Center was last year on October 2nd, so same-ish time period. 4,585. That is a substantial drop from last year. Just looking over the numbers there over on WrestleTix, this is the lowest attendance ever recorded at the Peterson Event Center. The only other time that they had that low of an attendance was in 2023, and we were deeply mired into the brochacho stuff. And even then, the attendance was higher than this week's Dynamite. Now, you might say, Warren, it's not fair. Last year, 4,500. That was for the that was the anniversary show. That was the 5th anniversary show, and that was last year. And it was it had Okada versus Danielson on it. It had Ospreay versus Ricochet. Like, it was a big show, right? So it's like, oh, it's not fair, Warren, to come. You're really comparing apples to oranges on this. Well, I mean, look at all the other times that AEW had been there. Like, they had been trending. It was always one of their more popular spots. It would always be one of the venues where they would sell the most tickets. So, like, I don't know. What am I missing here? Is this like an indictment? Is this like, oh, AEW is finally dead? No, but I'm still wondering, what is the formula? Let me spin this in another way. the ratings are what they are, and everyone's touting how great they are. And everyone's saying, the HBO Max numbers, well, Tony Khan, he's letting on that, the numbers are very, very high. There's a lot of people, a substantial amount of people who watch on HBO Max. We had the BJ Bethel report, what was it, like months ago at this point, where he had essentially reported that 500,000 people were watching, right, on HBO Max, which a lot of us still feel is a little dubious. We're not, but again, not a shot at BJ. I think he's extremely credible. But it's a very dubious number, is what I'm saying. Not the report, the number. I think is dubious, and dubious is a fun word to say. I wish I could report more on things that are dubious, because I think dubious is a fun word to say. And look, if there's 500,000 people per week watching Dynamite on HBO Max, why isn't this translating into bigger weekly sales, right? Like you would assume that if the weekly show performed so well, you would 100% get more people in the buildings. We would not be like always fluctuating like this between, the average, like the year to date show average is 3,057, which maybe might not be super fair to use this average as it is now because of the residency in the 2300 arena, which they did 3 weeks there, and that was capped at 916 tickets per night. So maybe it's not exactly fair, but nonetheless, look, you get what I'm saying? Like, we're not trending in the 6,000s, the 7,000s, the 8,000s. We're trending around 3,000 average, right? Why aren't all these people watching Dynamite on HBO Max and all these great ratings and whatnot? Why is this not converting to more weekly TV taping ticket purchases? I mean, I'm not talking about the pay-per-views. Now, we've talked about this multiple times here on this podcast, review podcast. I was going to say podcast review, but that's not what we do. That's not what it is at all. God bless me for not doing that. That sounds awful to anyone who does do that. Hats off to you. Could you believe just going around listening to podcasts, all sorts of different podcasts with the state of podcasting in 2025, and say, okay, I'm going to review what I listen to. I'm going to pick up a show and I'm going to start reviewing that. It's like, oh my God. You'd have to listen to the Hawk Tua girl and give some reviews. Is she even still doing her podcast? Yeah. You want to talk about 15 minutes? Like, I think that was a perfectly timed 15 minutes. The Hawk Tua girl. You don't hear about her anymore. She did her crypto rug pull, pretended that, I shouldn't say pretended, alleged that, this was all above her and she wasn't aware of anything, right? And then she, she disappears. I think she attempts to come back. It fails. She disappears, but she has the money. Like, she's been paid. Is she even, I know she's not a thing anymore. What was her name? Haley Welsh. Is that Haley Welsh, right? I know she's not a thing. I'm just wondering if her podcast is still on. And I'm not going to check. Like, I'm literally not going to take my laptop that is right here, like just out of camera shot, that I'm going to put on my lap in a few seconds to actually do the review like I usually do. I'm not going to take it to use it in order to find out whether or not the Talk Tua podcast is still on, if it's still thriving. I'm not doing it. If you want to, we can talk about it in the comments, but I'm not doing it. Anyway. Why did I start talking about this? Because of reviews. Because of, I completely lost my train of thought on that one. And I'm fairly easy to have, I'm an easy guy to lose, I'm an easy guy who can lose his the train of thought. It doesn't take much effort. And the next thing boop. Oh yeah, I remember. Okay, so So, it has nothing to do with the pay-per-view buys, which are doing really good. Like, they do great business, honestly, both live and purchases and actual pay-per-view buys. Oh my God. Like it all works. So that part of the business is working fine as far as, in regards to live attendance. They never have trouble really putting people in the buildings. And that's the indication. That's the indictment, right? Is that for some reason, the same AEW fans will not turn out for the weekly tapings, but they'll put 12,000 people into a building, 16,000, 10,000 for the pay-per-views, because the pay-per-views are not miss. That's the thing. You cannot miss with an AEW pay-per-view. Chances that they miss are very, very slim. So your boy Warren theorizes that one of the reasons for AEW's ticket woes on a week-to-week basis is one part, and that's not the entire situation, but one part of it is that you never know, as a fan, you'll never quite know if you're going to get to see the stars. You never know if you're going to get to see, the Hangman or Will Ospreay or Swerve or Mercedes or Tony or MJF or who else am I missing? Like the list goes on, right? Because like I've said in comparison to WWE, when you go to a Monday Night Raw, you know exactly who's going to be on the show because they're on the show every week. Even if it's just to come out to do a promo, you're going to get Seth Rollins, you're going to get Cody, right? Cody's on Raw. Just bear with me for the example, right? Whereas on SmackDown, it's the same thing. You're always going. You always know that the biggest stars, the stars are going to be there. They're going to be on the show. Whereas AEW could be all over the place. Look, Mox was on the show last night, but not in a wrestling capacity. He didn't have a very big role, So you never quite know exactly what you're going to get ultimately. Kenny Omega, that's another very good example. God knows, hell yeah, you'll never know if Kenny Omega's going to be on an AEW show these days. The Bucks were not on the show last night. You see, it's an interesting scenario on that front, because I understand that right now AEW. Right now, there's a lot of guys who are injured that are out playing video games at the Tokyo Game Show, whatever it is they're doing. But even in circumstances where everyone is healthy, there's no guarantee you're going to get everyone, right? Some were a little more guaranteed than others. There was a strip where Will Ospreay was on TV every week and he was wrestling pretty much every week. Then Jon Moxley was the same thing just recently, But if you want to see Kenny Omega, well, that's a crapshoot, brother. Like, who knows if you're going to see Kenny Omega if you go to an AEW show these days? So I think that's part of the issue. It's one thing announcing shows in advance, right? I know that's people then distill it down to this. Well, we don't have to announce everything in advance. No, they don't. They really don't. But AEW has created the situation where I think fans don't necessarily expect to see their favorites, to see the top stars at their weekly tapings, because it's so sporadic. Look, MJF wasn't there live, on Dynamite either. So the AEW created the situation for themselves. Now, of course, if they did announce in advance, as far out as they can, because I also understand you can't do it months in advance. You can't, because then that'll give away TV and that. But if they could, they should. And honestly, if AEW was I want to be careful how I phrase this, but if AEW was booked with maybe a little more care, maybe it wouldn't be an issue to have all the matches for next week announced this week. Because I remember a time where Excalibur would run off all of the upcoming matches for next week's Dynamite on the Dynamite. And you all, look, if you were watching a couple of years ago, 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know specifically what I'm talking about. It was a joke. It was a meme amongst wrestling fans because he had to blow through the entire card for next week at the speed of light. He had like 15 seconds to get it done. But you knew exactly what was happening next week on Dynamite. You'd close out a Dynamite knowing the exact card for next week. It's not like that anymore. And I think the opposite could help. I'm not saying that that's the solution. I don't think that's I'm absolutely not saying like this is the prime reason why it's not happening like that, but it's a symptom at the very least. Like it's absolutely a symptom. Anyway, let's get to this show, which overall I thought was fine, good little show. It was a good little show, a show that I like. It started off feuds. It started off some new programs, some new directions. But you could also feel like, well, we're saving some things for the 6th anniversary show next week. You know, we're not exactly going in. We're not exactly going super gung ho here tonight. We're saving some things for the big 6th anniversary next week, which is, you know, will plausibly have more eyeballs on it. More people are probably going to watch it. So we want to do our bigger angles over there, which maybe was to the detriment of this show. But then again, like this show wasn't a disaster, but maybe needed a firecracker. Like I said, it was a good little show. I thought we got, I over the past 2 weeks, I thought we've been getting some really good shows out of Dynamite. This week was like, it's fine. But you could feel it was almost like transitionary, right? We'll get into it. You'll see what I mean as we plop down here, because I got a couple of notes on that. So the show opens with Hangman Adam Page backstage cutting a promo praising Kyle Fletcher for the big pay-per-view win. And then he says he's doing an open challenge tonight here in Pittsburgh. And the person who is going to be challenging him for the open challenge here in Pittsburgh will be Pittsburgh's own Lee Moriarty. All right. Then we get another promo backstage from The Demand, which is Ricochet's new group with the GOA. And I guess, like, I wasn't crazy about the name, and I'm still not. I'm like, what is this, 2016 Evolve? But, you know, when he did the catchphrase, where he said, you know, when you're in demand, you can make demands. I'm like, okay. All right. That makes it all together. You know, it sort of connects everything. All right. You get a pass this time, Ricochet. Anyway, they're hyping the fact that they secured a title shot because Shabbat is injured. They were supposed to get a shot at the trios titles, but it's not going to happen. So instead, Tony Khan schmooved them into a tag team match, a tag team championship match, mind you, against Brodito. And that is the match that opened the show, where Brodito defeated the GOA to retain the AEW World Tag Team Championship. And I thought this was a blast of a match. I thought this was a lot of fun. A great crowd pleaser. Ricochet's on commentary on top of that for this one. So you have an entire commentary table made up of pro wrestlers, former pro wrestlers, and Danielson, Excalibur, Taz, Ricochet. So, when I thought about it, I was like, oh, all right. This is, it's both funny and cool. And this was really well done. I thought it was a fun match, really, to get the crowd into it. Boy, the crowd was really into it. They were super hot for this match. I like the story that they established at first, that the Gates of Agony didn't want to fight Bandito. They thought he was too small, you know. But then Brody's like, all right, go for it, brother, And he eats shit for a while, and then Brody King comes in for a hot tag, but then it reverses. Then, Brody King is babyface in peril for a period in this match. And Brodito has to come do a big hot tag to save his partner, and he's being quick and elusive and dodge and sting like a butterfly, move like a butterfly, sting like a bee. You can't sting like a butterfly. Butterflies don't sting. They gently land on your head. That's what they do. And what's also funny is that Bandito seems to have adopted the Macarena as part of his as part of his emoting for the ring. So I'm like, okay, I don't know. It's funny because it's cringe, and hopefully he's doing it because he also thinks it's cringe, and it's not something that he legitimately loves. But okay, but here's the thing, I think I'm becoming a Toa Leona guy. I've always had a penchant for the dude. I always appreciated his work, but I feel like there's something that's ignited. There's something going on. Of course, having a little push like they're having right now will help to sort of strike a flame, right? In this circumstance, like I thought he was really good at the pay-per-view at All Out. I thought he was really good. And I kind of thought he stood out in this match. I think he's becoming much more confident. He's securing his spot. Plus, he's really good. He's really, really good. He had some great exchanges with Brody King. I think I think I'm turning into a Toa Leona guy. I thought he had a very good showing here. The match ends. Well, first, before the match ends, what's wrong with me? Before the match ends, Ricochet tries to interfere with the chair while the ref is distracted, but Ref Aubrey then gets undistracted, sees the chair, and has him ejected from ringside. But it's too late for the Geo Wave at this point. The Brodito guys do a combination dive 21-plex thing, where stereo, I should say, not combination, stereo dive 21-plex thing for the win to secure the victory and retain their titles. Good match. I enjoyed it. Was a lot of fun. High energy. We go to an interview backstage with the conglomeration, and basically they're dropping all these clues as to who is going to be the mystery partner for their trios match later tonight. And it was already hinted at that it was going to be Orange Cassidy at the pay-per-view. And now here, like they were just, they were, Orange, you glad you have friends like us, or something to that effect. Future so bright, I got to put on my shades. And then, where is my mind? Like, it's okay. And then commentary sort of played it off as like, oh, am I stupid? Or who are they talking about? They were obviously in on the joke. They were just playing it off to say, well, isn't it obvious? Kind of, they were doing irony, right? They were being ironic in their approach. So yeah, we all knew at this point it was indeed going to be Orange Cassidy. Then we had another backstage interview with Chris Statlander. She's with Renee Paquette, and Harley Cameron is there with the, I wish Harley would get rid of the cat makeup. I just wish she'd got rid of that cat makeup. So Harley Cameron is she's being a hype woman for Statlander, and Statlander basically says, I'm banged up, but I'm going to give it all against Miura Shirakawa later tonight. And then essentially this is a setup for the angle later tonight where Renee addresses the Death Riders situation. She asks Statlander, she says, Chris, where do you stand with the Death Riders, or something to that effect? And Statlander, basically no-sells the question. Well, she doesn't no-sell the question. She gives a very ambiguous response, which is us all wondering, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? Then we had Hangman Adam Page defeating Lee Moriarty to retain the AEW Men's World Championship. I liked it. I liked it enough. It's nothing that will knock your socks off, but I enjoyed the match. some good graps to start it off. But then Hangman gets more in control because he starts using his power moves. I thought it was solid. Nothing that you should go out of your way to rewatch, but it was, a fine match, a good little match. And Paige ends the match with the Deadeye, not the buckshot lariat, because and that's fine. Like, Lee is, he's not in his lane. He is really like he's much lower on the card, so he shouldn't need to pull out finisher number 1 to end Lee Moriarty. If he finishes off with the Deadeye, that's good. And then it also serves down the line. So when people do see Hangman use the Deadeye but have people kick out, well, then, then it becomes more of a thing, right? Then it's, ooh. So I think that's good ultimately for Hangman, who retains the AEW World Title. There's some footage from backstage at the Scotiabank Center at All Out, where Adam Copeland is packing his bags in a hurry, and Christian Cage is like, "What's going on?" And Adam Copeland basically says, "Look, I can't keep doing this. I can't do this anymore. I keep putting my family in danger. I don't know if I can do this, and I don't know if I will even be back. Don't tease us with a good time, Cope." But basically, he shakes his hand. He shakes Christian's hand when Christian says, "You go take care of your family. I used to have a family. I don't anymore." Christian and Copeland says, "You do have a family. I'm your family, brother. I'm your family. I'm your family." That's not what he said, but not specifically, not in that tone. Mostly, I mean, this is where I know. This is where I know. I feel it in my bones, I should say. My gut is telling me that all of this angle, all of this thing is an Adam Copeland special, because it makes no sense that he should be going around saying, "I can't do this anymore. All of this is putting my family in danger," because he's the guy clearly who brought his wife, who told her, fix up your hair and the Viking dude. You're in the Horizon New Dawn. What's the name of the game again? Fix up your hair like a Viking, and I'm gonna ask the production guys to create a Tron for you with music and your name, okay? And then you can come run in. I'm like, that's the first thing that I'm like, this doesn't make sense that he's upset that his family is put in danger when he put his family in that position to begin with. Second of all, Beth Phoenix is a fucking pro wrestler. She can't take a pile driver, even if it's a stuffed one. Fuck off. What are we doing here? What is this? She's a pro wrestler. It's fine. Why is everyone having conniptions? If she was a third grade school teacher, comes into the ring and she has, just a shirt on, button up shirt, and she's got flats on. She's wearing flats. She comes to the ring and then FTR, drive her skull through the mat with a fucking, indie taker. You're like, what the fuck? Well, of course. Then you're like, oh, that kind of sucks. She's not a wrestler. But it's Beth Phoenix. And her whole gimmick is she's big and strong. That's her gimmick. That was her thing. You see how none of this makes sense? You see how Copeland can go kick rocks? Go shoot your fucking Percy Jackson bullshit, Go do that. Go be isn't he like the god of war? What? I've never watched Percy Jackson. Like the only knowledge I have of Percy Jackson is because of Adam Copeland. Essentially, it's novels, right? It's young adult. It's young adult. It's a young adult series, right? Where it's like the Olympians and he's supposed to be like Ares, I think, something like that. I mean, that's the thing, right? He's supposed to be going off, taking some time off he's supposed to take some time off to go shoot his show, and then he'll be back. Like, he's not, like, I saw people saying, "Oh my gosh, he's leaving to go, he's leaving to go wrestle John Cena. I'm like, no. As far as I understand, he's still under contract with AEW. And I've been part of some discussions where people, asked, well, would Tony Khan let Adam Copeland go wrestle one match, a one-nighter with John Cena because it's his retirement tour? And my answer is 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I would think that Tony Khan would have considered it, probably maybe even would have edged onto the side of yes, but I think he would have indeed considered it. 2025 Tony Khan is an absolute no. Is not in this context, not in this environment where WWE is trying to stomp them out, although unsuccessfully with their fucking their counter programming. Let's be real. Let's be real. The counter programming is not working. And before, I'm sure that they assumed that it wasn't really successful because it was the B shows, because they thought they could counter program the big AEW shows with a Saturday night main event and fucking NXT show during the day. But they're the B shows, right? Don't get people really excited, especially NXT. So they had to come to grips with the fact that, well, if we want to counter program them properly, we're going to have to use our main roster shows. We're going to have to do something main roster, which led us to WrestlePalooza. First time that they counter-programmed AEW with the main roster, which already was an admittal of something. An admittal that their previous efforts were not working, that they had to move up, that AEW was on their level, essentially, which is something that I'm sure tore them up inside. And then they do it and it doesn't work. The show was mostly average, fairly rejected by a lot of online WWE fans, and no signs that it was a success on any level. Not from WWE, not from ESPN. No press releases saying, oh, the amount of subscribers jumped thanks to WrestlePalooza, or WrestlePalooza putting out or WWE putting out a press release saying, first night on ESPN, the most social, whatever the fuck. Nothing. They're just completely mama. It was a disaster for them. It didn't work out for them. And I'm sure Dave Meltzer tomorrow, because I'm recording this on Thursday late, tomorrow being Friday, therefore today, see how time works? He's going to have some more details about that in the Observer. I'm convinced. And then how much it ended up being a bomb. It was so much of a bomb that ESPN gave it a C. It graded it a C. So why am I talking about this? It was a little sidebar because we were talking about how Tony Khan would never let any of his wrestlers go do anything closely related to WWE anymore. Under the WWE banner, he just won't do it. He just won't do it. Anyway, Copeland's going to be gone for a while because of course. He's not going to stick around for an extended time. He's going to come in, do a feud that he wants to do, win it, then disappear for a while and come back and then win another feud. And I can't say it enough. Adam Copeland is exactly what AEW fans accused Chris Jericho of doing all these years. He is exactly doing that. But anyway, enough of that. Moving on. We get an in-ring promo to follow up that little bit between Cope and Cage. FTR and Stokely Hathaway walk out and they cut a promo. Of course, they're blaming Adam Copeland for Beth's injuries and whatnot. And they said, oh, I wish, so on and so forth. We shouldn't have, we really didn't want to hurt her, et cetera, et cetera. They're being very disingenuous, faking apologies. And that brings out Willow Nightingale, who, sticks up for Beth, says, Beth is her inspiration. She's an inspiration for so many wrestlers, women to get into the ring and wrestle because of how strong she was and so on and so forth. And she ends up paintbrushing Stokely across the face in a tremendous slap. And just when it's starting to look bad for Willow, Jet Speed show up to even out the odds and make sure that the FTR dudes get sent home packing. So two things here. First of all, I am all for Jet Speed, FTR. That sounds like a lot of fun. And if FTR can get back to doing their great heel bits uninterrupted or uninhibited, I should say, by the Adam Copeland stuff, I'm all for it because they're tremendous. And Willow, I think, because everyone's sort of like scratching their heads and like, why did she do this? Why did she come out? And look, maybe she was inspired by Beth. Maybe she is an influence on Willow, or maybe not. Maybe it's just like for the, for story purposes, right? Like how, like the Adam Page, Christopher Daniels stuff, like that was also sort of manufactured. Not saying they don't like each other. I'm just saying it's a little, anyway. So to me, I saw all of this go down and I'm like, oh, this adds a lot more credence to the assumption that Beth Phoenix might actually come back and wrestle, because then she might actually wrestle maybe with Willow, do something with Willow. Like I don't know what exactly, because, FTR, Cope and Cage, it's all dudes. So I don't know exactly. FTR can recruit ladies to come and do stuff, whatever. I mean, when I say do stuff, I mean wrestle. That's what I meant. Don't look at me like that. You can all get into the comments and write in all caps phrasing. Okay, it's fine. I corrected myself. I got myself. We get another pre-tape from the post show over at All Out, I should say, and it's MJF, and he is cutting a terrific post-match promo in which he is one. I feel like every time he does these, they're home runs, and this is not only a home run; it was a grand slam. He was absolutely outstanding. Reflecting on the fact that, he's been losing, he hasn't been himself, ever since at the Adam Cole betrayal, saying that he's been playing a caricature of himself, that, all these guys here, that we all love, Paige, Ospreay, Swerve, they used to all be in his dust. Now I'm eating their dust. And he says, look, I am sick of this shit. I'm done. And I'm going to, when I come back, because I guess he's going to go on his honeymoon, right? Which would be fine. But he says, when I come back, I'm going to be more dangerous than ever, and I'm going to get back on top, and I'm going to do it my way. Is this, hallelujah, is this the character transformation that we needed from MJF? Maybe. We'll see when he does come back, right? If so, again, Warren Hayes' instincts were spot on, right? Where I was like, this is what we need from Max. Like, Hangman's character has evolved. Everyone has changed except Max. Is the same guy, the exact same character that joined AEW back in 2019. Now it's time to sort of freshen things up. And this his way to do it? Leave, come back, being more dangerous than ever. I don't know exactly what that means. But if Max stays with this energy and he stays focused with this angry, bitter energy, and he can channel it into something really cool, he will be on top of the game one more time in no time. I thought it was an excellent promo. And I'm excited for his return now, which is what promos should get you excited for stuff. Now I'm excited for Max to return. And isn't it interesting? Again, it's really, really interesting that once again, Max delivers a home run promo, and yet look online, look at the little chats. No one is like, oh yeah, that was good. Yes, yeah. But they're giving a begrudging thumbs up to the promo. And we're going to forget this promo. We're going to forget all the good promos that he did in the past few weeks. We're going to forget all of the good work he's been doing. The minute he gets into the ring and cuts one promo that everyone is going, that everyone is going to hate, and suddenly we're going to forget it. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. Like I said, I think it was during the All Out review that I did, which is available right now here on the channel or on your favorite podcast application. Joe Lanza put it the best, where like the pendulum has swung so far into the direction of MJF is bad that it feels that you cannot have a reasonable conversation about MJF, because now in people's minds he's been boxed into MJF equals bad, and you cannot have a reasonable conversation about him anymore. I really do believe that, and this is despite the fact that he's been doing tremendous work. You don't see anyone going out there glazing MJF these days. Maybe me. Maybe because I've never been as bothered as most people have been in regards to his shtick and whatnot, because I'm like, he's a fucking heel. And he's a try-hard, so he's trying hard. We're not supposed to be jumping up and down and applauding what he does. So it comes across as cringe and try hard, and like, yes, because he is cringe and try hard. That's his whole thing. But we'll see when he comes back. But if this was a sign of anything, this was a highlight of the show. The Don Callis family hits the ring. They're ready for the match. Hechicero, Kazuchika Okada, and Konosuke Takeshita. They hit the ring, and then Don Callis grabs the microphone. He says, I'm a great painter, and I have a painting to unveil here tonight. Let's roll it out, fellas. And you got two guys on stage that roll out a what we assume to be a painting, because it is covered by a drape. They remove the draping, and it is Orange Cassidy who is in there. Comes out, and his video wall is not working. The content is not the content is unavailable, which is really funny, because then you also see the effects going. That was kind of funny. I don't know if it was intentional or not. Either way, it works for Orange Cassidy. So he comes out, gets a big reaction. He joins his boys, Mark Briscoe and Hologram, in defeating the Don Callis family in this action-packed trios bout. And Cassidy does, he goes through his shtick, of course, because people now they wanted to see that, because of course he hasn't been around for a while. So he does his stuff, and I have no problem with that. And it was funny, and it was a good little match. Nothing out of the ordinary, but a good little match, and lots of dives by all three, and it was fine. It was I thought overall it was a fine little match, and Hechicero, not Hechicero, but yes, Hechicero is involved in the finish. He gets pinned by Hologram using the portal bomb, so he gets the win for his team. That may seem like a little out of left field, because you're like, why wasn't Orange Cassidy the winner? Well, that's because Kyle Fletcher came out to then challenge Hologram to a match the next week at the 6th anniversary show. Another great promo by Kyle. Just another great promo by Kyle. I mean, you want to talk about people who are undeniable right now, like who are 100% going to be superstars in this business, who's going to be a world champion in AEW. This, there's no question here. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when at this point. And basically Fletcher's like, well, look, I'm going to challenge you, Hologram, and it'll be my title, the TNT title, versus your streak, because Hologram is still undefeated at 34 victories, no losses. So yeah, there you go. TNT title versus streak next week for the 6th anniversary show. Mina Shirakawa's backstage. She cuts a promo saying she hasn't heard from Tony since Saturday, and she will fight for Tony and for herself. And yeah, we get a vignette recapping all of the gruesome reanimation of Luchasaurus, who really was not dead. He was never dead. And I don't remember anyone putting him in a coffin and burying him alive or whatever. But look, Jurassic Express returns next week. I talk about, you can check out the review here if you want to hear my full thoughts about what I think about the reunion of Jurassic Express. It's already covered, and it's on the AEW All Out review by Warren Hayes. Claudio Castagnoli defeated Powerhouse Hobbs in a meaty slugfest. Claudio took a lot of punishment here, which was tremendous. The slow continuing build of Powerhouse Hobbs continues. He's never looked this good in the company as he has since joining the Ops. I keep hammering this home, but Hobbs joining the Ops was probably the biggest moment of kismet in someone's career. He was fantastic here. Just driving, body slams upon body slams upon body slams, and Claudio, got into some good offense. So you get to see a Hobbs selling as well, and it makes sense. The commentary kept putting over how strong Claudio was to make this plausible, and so it all worked. Pac interferes. Still very unnerving to see him with street clothes. It's not even the haircut. I can deal with the haircut. It's the clothes, man. It's still very unnerving. I'm not over it yet. My brain hasn't fully adapted to this new reality quite yet. And DeCastagnoli scores the pin with a small package. After the match, Samoa Joe runs in to run Pac off. Hobbs then goes after Claudio, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta come in to overwhelm. You play the numbers game until Hangman Adam Page comes out with his world title to even the odds. And that will lead us to a match between the Death Riders and Hangman Adam Page and Powerhouse Hobbs and Samoa Joe. Now, this is something, like I was talking about at the start of the show, which I feel is a setup for something next week, which will give us a direction moving forward. Like, I think this trios match next week is meant to lead us to an angle that will then create a path for Adam Page to the next pay-per-view. Because right now, you got to admit, it's a little muddy. Not quite sure what we're doing. Is Hangman going to have to deal with Joe as a challenger? Which it's possible. I'm curious as to why all of these people are still fighting with the Death Riders, right? You'd figure Hangman would be done with it. The Ops have just been constantly in the orbit, but there's never been a real proper blow off. So and now Shibata's hurt, so maybe that sort of throws a wrench in the thing. I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this, but I really feel like this was set for something bigger next week. 100%. I just haven't figured out what yet. So if anything, I'm intrigued, and it might just be nothing. It might be a whole bucket of nothing, but I don't think so. I think if you're doing this match, you're going to set up something. It's got to be a setup for something bigger next week to happen on the show. It's not Mox that's going to be lined up for Hangman. Mox is still entangled with Darby. We're going to talk about that in a second. So yeah, I don't know. It's still very curious to me. Then we get Tony Khan's special announcement, his touted special announcement that a lot of people were speculating on. Turns out he has finally announced that the Women's World Tag Team Championship, and to the delight of thousands. And I'm glad they finally did it. I think it'll be really, really good for the division. I think it'll be really, really good for the women. It'll give them something to fight for. It'll be much more interesting, at least in practice, right? Because then the booker has to commit to this. But in theory, in practice, this should be a very good thing for the women of the roster. You're going to get more women on TV, more women having angles surrounding this title. It kind of makes me feel like it's not a coincidence that Toni Storm lost the title then. If she wants to go and team up with Mina and have and be the inaugural World Tag Team Champions. I mean, look, it's a good way to keep Tony out of the world title picture for a while, so that Statlander can have a proper run without having to deal with Tony sooner than later. Gives credibility, instant credibility to your titles. Look, it's like when they did the trios titles, they put them on the Elite, right? Well, it instantly makes them feel important because you're giving them to the, a former world champion, so it's and a beloved wrestler on the roster as well. So there's a lot of, I don't hate this idea of Tony Storm, and we're all assuming Mina. I think it's fair to assume that they would be a tag team. I don't hate this. I don't hate this at all, and I'd be all for it. We had a little discussion in the Discord, and it's like, no, you should be giving it to someone who is deserving, like a tag team who would need it, like Sky Blue and like Sky Blue and Julia Hart. But my argument here is, while I understand the logic, I don't think it would be as useful as you think, because you're coming out you're coming out the gate with the titles, and you're giving them to two up and coming wrestlers, but who are still very low rung on the ladder. I think it'd be much more meaningful if, let's say, Sky and Hart won them off of, let's say, Tony and Mina. That is much more meaningful than them being the first ever, and everyone's kind of like, oh, okay, it's these girls kind of thing, Whereas having Tony win it, they're like, people will be like, oh, and they'll be into it because it's Tony, and it creates an instant opportunity to elevate someone after. So that's what I'd do. That would be my way of approaching it anyway. And finally, we had Chris Statlander defeat Mina Shirakawa to retain the title. And I thought this was a terrific match. I really thought it was a lot of fun. I thought Statlander and she and Mina worked really well together. I'm thinking Chris got a lot out of her. Look, I don't think Mina is this super worker. I don't think she's all, I don't think she's this mind-blowing in-ring worker. But her last couple of matches that she had, like the one with Athena for Death Before Dishonor, was it? And then this one here, like, she's been over-delivering. She's been going that little extra mile. And to me, I thought it was like, oh, okay, this is actually really good. Like, she's turning up. She's showing up. She's turning out. It's ending up, I'm not bored. I don't think she's awful. She's having some solid matches here with Statlander, and Statlander looked great, and she got the big win. And I thought, this is really the way to. They started off Chris Statlander in the best way possible to get people hyped for her reign. They give her the main event, have her wrestle a solid match. She looks good in victory. Then the Death Riders come out, because ultimately this all led to this big angle where the Wheeler Utah comes out, and he's he had whispered some stuff into Statlander's ear, like he'd been doing for weeks at this point, right? At the start of the match. And then he comes out and he's celebrating, and then all the Death Riders come out. And then Jon Moxley steps into the ring and stands across from Statlander. And, it's like, and Harley Cameron is there as well, because she came out to celebrate. But now all the Death Riders are there. Harley's there. You've got all the possibilities for an angle there. It's like, oh, is she gonna lariat her friend, or is she gonna, is she gonna attack Mox? And well, she attacks Wheeler, and then she puts both of her. She flips Mox off. She gives him a double bird, like right in the face. And when I mean right in the face, I mean like full on contact with his face. And then fucks off into the crowd with Harley, and stands in the arena and holds her title high, and the crowd is into it. This is what they wanted. They didn't want a heel Chris Statlander. They enjoyed this. They were into it. It was a good move. So now that story is behind us. And however, Darby Allin arrives, and he's got a flamethrower, and he's threatening to burn the Death Riders to a crisp. apparently. And he walks around the ring with the flamethrower a little bit, and he gets on the microphone and he challenges Jon Moxley to an I Quit match at Wrestle Dream. Of course, Mox didn't respond. Didn't hear, he just sort of stood there and he, doing Mox faces. So we'll probably get an answer maybe next week. But an I Quit match, look, I think it's great that these guys are going to give themselves another opportunity to inflict egregious harm upon each other some more. I think that's fine. For my entertainment, I have no issues with that. So there you go. So, yeah. So you see what I mean? Like, we've got programs set up, some new directions, reestablishing some feuds to see, okay, well, this is the direction where we're going here, and so on and so forth. Some new feuds like FTR and Jet Speed. And then we have stuff that's set up for next week, which is clearly going to build to something bigger for the pay-per-view. Because I don't think Adam Page is in a position where we're running him versus Mox again. Absolutely not. So there you go. Wrestling was fine to good. Everything sort of worked, but without anything that felt out of the ordinary or special. It's just a decent, well put together wrestling show that I enjoyed overall, and that wasn't anything extraordinary that I'll be sitting around crowing for moons about it. It's fine wrestling show. Clearly, I think they're saving a lot of stuff for next week. I'm saving my energy for next week so that I can come back on Thursday and do another Dynamite review for you all on Thursday. So thank you very much for being here today on this Friday. I apologize once again for the delay. Won't happen next week for sure until it happens again next week. Sometimes you just can't plan for things. If you haven't already, leave a like on the video or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. There you go. Come back and see me on Monday. We'll be streaming on the YouTube channel, and there will probably be some reviews available this weekend for members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. I will likely be reviewing the New Japan and Stardom shows that are occurring over the next couple of days. So be sure to tune in for that. Otherwise, listen, thank you all very much for joining me. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I'll see you next time.